Prime's back in black. Here's your look at the Flame Toys Furai model. This is the model kits of Nemesis Prime, the IDW version. The IDW version of Nemesis Prime comes as a snap-together model kit with exact details and featuring over 40 points of articulation. First thing we're going to do is measure off to the top of Nemesis Prime. I'm actually going to those side antennas located on the side of his helmet to give you guys the necessary measurements if you're looking to pick up this one for yourself. According to the Ultrameasotron 5000 and according to the readout here, the snap-together model kit of Nemesis Prime stands 6.9 inches, almost 7 inches in height. And that works out in centimeters as being 17.6, a little over 17.5 centimeters tall. Being that this is a snap-together model kit, one thing you'll definitely make use of is the included instruction guide. The instructions, 71 steps in total, tells you how to put together all those trays of separate pieces until you finally have a finished Nemesis Prime. I know what you're thinking, looking at the instructions, they seem rather intimidating. Rather not, actually. By the time I got to about halfway through, I was sort of starting to understand how the pieces are. And while it was all said and done, I think it took me about an hour or so, uninterrupted time, to go from here and the trays of parts to the final piece here. The thing though is, even though the instructions are really easy to read and very easy to understand, one thing it doesn't tell you though is it doesn't tell you the sticker placement. It gives you of course some various different poses, as this is a very posable version of Nemesis Prime. But the included stickers that come included with it don't actually tell you whereabouts it goes. So between the front of the cover and some side box art, I kind of guessed where most of the stickers were going to go. We'll talk about the stickers in a second. Once you get all the parts put together and you finish Nemesis Prime, you'll also finish a bunch of accessories that come included with it. He gets his trademark ion blaster, and though you normally expect to see this with Optimus Prime, the coloring and the look of it is just as familiar as ever, even though it's done with this black-clad version of Prime. It does look really neat and very little to assemble. In fact, it's actually just two halves you're snapping together, and then you put this front section in, and it sort of kind of keeps everything in place. It's large and, again, really impressive. Nice to include and display your Prime along with the Ion Blaster. The other thing he comes included with is a series of interchangeable hands. Most, if not all, these hands are just half pieces that you put together. And the hands that he comes included with are a pair of closed fists, currently in the socket sections, a pair of dynamic hands, spread and ready for some dynamic poses, and then he also comes with a pair of these hands, trigger holding hands, specifically for the Ion Blaster. The thing about these particular hands, though, is that you do have to separate the front section of the fingers from the back section of the hand. I found it was rather easy, actually, just to use a very small, flat-tipped screwdriver. Just kind of get it in between the fingers. You can see really the line divide right there. Just pry them away from one another. I just find twisting it back and forth usually helps. And just pop that open. Once that's open, you can get your finger actually in there. Just pry that open like that. Certainly don't lose the pieces, whatever you do. Then you can take the ion blaster, you can fit it in between the hand like so, and then you can take the other hand, replace it back to where we left it, just snap it together like that, and you've got him holding the ion blaster in his hand. Then you can go ahead and take the model, pull the hand off of the socket section, and replace it very easily, actually, just with some pegs. Put the peg into the hole, just line it up like that, and then you've got Nemesis Prime with his blaster. Such a cool accessory as that. Most definitely I would be displaying the model with the ion blaster in his hand. But you can see how easy it is just to change out the hands, just popping those off the sockets, replacing it to the one that you want to use, and then proceeding with displaying this rather cool looking model. Now, as I said, uninterrupted time. It took me about an hour or so. I feel like it was a relaxing experience. I wasn't really fretting too much putting the pieces together. In fact, the biggest hassle, it seemed, was actually just applying the stickers. We'll talk about that in a second. In the meantime, though, let's have a look at Nemesis Prime. There's something about Nemesis Prime that I've always gravitated towards. While I like the traditional red and blue colors of Prime, there's something to be said about the darker tones, these dark undertones that Nemesis Prime uses. All the dark blacks swapping out from the reds, and instead of things like clear windows, Nemesis Prime has this really cool ruby red windscreen that's across the front there. He's got some great looking detail for such a small looking model. Having a close-up look at his head, as you can see, he's got the side fins on either side. He's a very posable figure. I keep wanting to say figure. Really, when it boils down to it, it's a model. But once you get everything put together, you'd be fooled to think that this is an action figure, featuring, again, of course, the 40 points of articulation, so there's a fair bit to look at and move on this guy. But a close-up look at his helmet is rather familiar-looking Prime, just done in a different, darker color scheme. He does have red in his eyes, though it's quite hard to make out. He doesn't have any light piping happening to him. In fact, when I put in the red visor, it seems automatically just lost in the mix, which I guess is fine for how small those eyes are. It would be really hard to have projected red eyes peeking their way through from those sockets. We have a Decepticon logo there. I just put it there based on the box artwork. And again, there's some sticker applications done to the sides here. He's kind of got these gauntlets located on the sides of his forearms. If you wanted to, you really could just leave them off altogether. They just unpeg. Let me just show you how they come off here. And like I said, you don't want to be removing the whole arm in the process, but the shield guards, these guards on the sides of his forearms, do come off. Sometimes the one thing that does come off in the process, though, are these back fins. But just to show you, you can just go ahead and take this off like so, and you can leave it off altogether if you wanted to. I kind of like it for the fact that it does add a little bit of extra beef to Prime's arms, Nemesis or not. It's a good opportunity as well to make out these cool looking stickers that come also included with these. The Decepticon logo and the blue banding is rather a familiar sight for me when I think Nemesis Prime, whether it be Scourge or Nemesis Prime having that blue color scheme over the years of collecting black variants of Optimus Prime. Usually the colors that are used is either black, it's this type of blue, this coloring of blue, or it's, again, those bright red here indicated there on the windshield. Some sticker applications I applied here to the front, I guess the venting from the front of the trailer. And then again, some sticker application done to the legs there. Stickers I also applied here. Unfortunately, I didn't get it completely leveled here on the one side, but some blue stickers happening there, and also added some silver stickers on the edges of his feet. Most of it, like I said, if not all of it, the hardest part was just trying to pinpoint whereabouts the stickers go. In fact, once everything is put together, you still sort of are left with a whole bunch of stickers that you're scratching your head trying to figure out whereabouts they go. I'm sure if you look hard enough, you could probably find places in which these stickers are supposed to go, like these sections right here probably go up to the right here. But like I said, there's no real instructions necessarily telling you where the stickers go to. He is very posable for his size. It really is baffling when you start putting these pieces together. You're not really sure how everything's going to go about until finally you finish the model. And then you kind of see the splendor that's this really neat, non-transformable, but still really cool looking Prime. Things that move on him are these little back wings. You can move those back and forth. Sometimes though, when you are moving them, the back wings do clip or come removed from the little fastened sides. In fact, when you are putting them on, as you can see, they just kind of clamp on either side of these little tab points and just snap into place like that. But there's some posability. You can move these back and forth. I kind of actually like having them just out a little bit because it's not normally what you expect to see with Prime. Love the head sculpt. Torso is nice and slender, though he has a very broad shoulder width. He's got the gray done here in the legs. Pretty much all black on the legs, swapping out from the blue you would normally expect to see on one Optimus Prime. And then he's got some gray vents happening on the fronts of his legs, which match themselves to the gray that's been done here in the leg. And the torso section, this very familiar kind of belt area for Prime. Very much familiar here also with Nemesis Prime, and it's been done in a very similar type of silver plastic. Looks really good on this guy. Again, I'm really surprised with how much posability inhabits this one model. You can see some tires done on the back. These are not real moving tires. In fact, actually, when you do snap them together, this model kit, you are taking two halves to the tires, putting them together, and then snapping them into place. I seem like I might have simplified that a little bit. There's a little bit more involved to it, but when it's all said and done, like I said, the instructions were quite simple and straightforward. It really does beg the question for me, like, why am I not building more of these models? Specifically, like Primes, not maybe Primes, but Transformers in general. I find like the trade-off, though, is while you're not necessarily getting one Transformer that could transform into a vehicle, for example, what you're really getting instead, though, is a really neat-looking model, which, like I said, is quite posable. Let's go ahead and show off all the posability points for this guy. And like I said, there's a fair bit. His head is on a ball joint, so you can hinge it up, down, left, right, and in theory you could rotate it all the way around, although he will butt up against the back part of his backpack here. The shoulders, the arms I should say, allow the arms to rotate all the way around, and you can also hinge them back and forth. He's kind of got this cool shoulder crunch thing happening where the top of his blades actually will kind of retract in, and you can see there's this hinge joint which kind of adds a little extra cool appeal if you want to display the figure kind of in a dynamic pose where he's got the ion blaster in his hand. You can really pull off a lot of cool poses with this guy. The forearm does rotate, and it does have a double hinge happening in the elbow. The only unfortunate thing is I found this elbow here, this forearm, is a little on the loose side. I may actually just go in there with some additional, maybe nail polish, clear nail polish, and see if I can thicken up the joint, put the arm back together, and hopefully that will make this forearm just a little bit tighter. Whatever hand you decide to go with, those hands also rotate all the way around, attached to the peg socket of the forearm here. And like I said, there's a swivel point happening right there. Just going to make sure everything's kind of snapped together. I'm really impressed with how much articulation he has in the upper torso. As well, he has torso articulation in the lower half, where it sort of starts connecting here to the sections of his waist, if you want to call it a waist, I suppose, on a robot. There is some posability happening here. These little front sections do rotate back and forth. For articulation on his legs hinge out. You could pretty much get a full splits happening with Nemesis Prime. That's pretty impressive. The legs go forward, the legs go back. Sometimes while things are moving, things do unpeg. After all, this is a model kit. In the instructions, they do indicate there are certain sections that you may want to glue, just so when you are moving things, primarily things like arms and areas of the legs, they stress that you may want to add some additional glue happening there, just so pieces don't start coming off. I haven't had too much of a problem. Things like these little side areas, fronts of the kind of the waist section, are all things that have fallen off of this. But as you can see, it's just simply a case of just snapping that back into place. That's the beauty of these being snapped together models. He does have quite a generous bend in the knee. I mean, look how much he's able to bend. A full, beyond the point of a 90-degree angle. He can almost even touch the back of his backpack here. The legs do swivel, being that they are also on a ball joint. And then he does also have toe articulation, or foot articulation is on a ball joint. You get an ankle rocker, and you also get front toe articulation, where these little front skirtings here that just kind of drape over top of the feet also have their own independent ball joints. So like I said, if you wanted to get this guy in some pretty dynamic poses, prior of course to the idea you may want to just snap some of these pieces together, like I said, you can really pull off quite the accomplished feat from Nemesis Prime. If you do feel like the statue or the model here, when you are moving it, has pieces that fall off, like I said, quite easy to snap together. Even in this review, you saw a couple of pieces falling off. Putting it back on, not a problem at all. If you feel, though, you are moving things and things are falling off too frequently, by all means, add a little bit of glue, and it will guarantee that whatever pose you put Nemesis Prime in, he's going to stay in place, and none of the pieces are going to fall off. Now, I will admit I'm still relatively new to the idea of snap-together model kits. I've put together a couple already on this channel, and growing up with my father, I would put together model kits of cars. Those generally didn't require just snap together. You need a little bit of extra glue and paint as well. They certainly have advanced over the years. Now you snap everything together, and everything is generally already painted, or the plastic is molded in the color that you need. You really don't need to paint them. Sticker application is about the only thing you really need to add to these. But I have to say that it's rather rewarding. When you first open up the box lid, you're sort of intimidated by the number of trays and intricate parts that you all have to snap together with the help of the instruction guide, and several steps later. It's a rewarding experience, I have to admit, when you step back maybe an hour or so later and realize that you built this from scratch. It's mind-boggling, the idea that this guy has as much posability as he is. I mean, you can really pull off some of the things that transforming versions of Nemesis Prime certainly could not pull out. While he doesn't transform, and I'm fine for the fact he doesn't, what you do get, though, instead, is a really neat-looking Nemesis Prime that you can put on display in various different displays on your shelf, and you can just admire him and pose him whenever you want. He's intricate, but not too busy to the fact that, like I said, I was overwhelmed with the build experience. The hardest part, if anything, was putting on the stickers after the fact, and I know there's still some stickers that I need to put onto Prime. I may or may not put those on. I guess that's the benefit of it. I followed kind of the box art to kind of dictate where those stickers went. When it's all said and done, I could have just left the stickers off if I wanted to. And I guess it's really up to you, the builder. You can either go full on with the stickers, or you can just pull it back a little bit and just enjoy the mold for what it is. At the end of the day, again, a really neat looking mold of Nemesis Prime. Something about the black version of Optimus Prime I've always really liked. There's not many that have been on the market. Generally, in recent years, every time there has been a Prime, there's generally a black follow-up of Nemesis Prime. So I'm really glad I was able to pick this one up. I also want to send a big thank you to the folks over at the Bluefin distribution company, who was nice enough to actually hook me up with this. If you are interested in checking out some more from the folks over at Flame Toys, I'll put some links down below. You can follow them on various different social media outlets. Today, though, we were having a look at the Flame Toys. This is the Furia model of the model kit of Nemesis Prime in his IDW version. If you manage to pick up this one for yourself, let me know down below in the comments section what you think of this model, or based on this review and this review alone. And also let me know in the comments section if you'd like to see me do more build model kits. I have to admit, again, it's not something I'm normally used to doing, more figures than anything else, but how much fun and enjoyment I got out of putting together this guy, and the end result of how cool he looked. I definitely would be considering building more of these and maybe reviewing more of them on this channel. Make sure you are, if you haven't done so already, subscribing to this channel. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, you hit that bell notification, and stay tuned, because we're going to have a whole bunch of videos coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.